So yesterday we started talking about the way of the fool, and as we continue to talk about the way of the fool, we find here in Proverbs chapter 12, beginning in verse 15, or 16 rather, it says, a fool's anger is known at once. A fool's anger is known at once. You make a fool angry, and you're going to know just how much of a fool they are because, boy, it's going to come out. It's going to be evident. It is going to be seen. They are going to reveal themselves in their anger for who they really are. And since they're a fool, they have no restraint. They're not going to be able to restrain themselves. They're not going to be able to contain themselves. They're not going to be able to hold themselves back. They're not going to be any different than a 3-year-old child that is throwing a toddler's fit. And so, you look at a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, boy, they get angry, and what do? They throw themselves down on the floor, and they begin kicking and screaming because they're not able to get their way. So when we see that and we understand that, a fool's anger is known at once. Look at verse 18. Verse 18 says, there is one who speaks rashly like the thrust of a sword. They speak rashly, like the thrust of a sword. They use their words as weapons out of the act of anger, and it's because they're a fool. They might even do it towards those who they love. And later on, they'll say, well, what in the world did I say that for? What in the world did I act like that for? Because you have no restraint, because you're not walking in wisdom and acting in wisdom. May say something harsh to their wife that they live to regret, or to their children that they live to regret. And you know what? One of the greatest lies that's ever been told, one of the greatest lies that's ever been told is sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I've had physical injuries that I forget about, don't even think about. But then I've had emotional injuries where people say things and, the devil wants to continue to use that and pour salt in the wound and they hurt. It's one of the biggest lies that's been told. So a fool doesn't care what he says. A fool doesn't care who he hurts or what kind of negative effect that he has. He's going to use those words as rashly thrusting a sword into somebody. But the wise person in verse 16, a prudent man conceals dishonor. Doesn't mean that he won't be angry. The Bible says be angry and sin not. But out of wisdom and out of godly wisdom, he's not going to act out in that anger. No, he instead is going to be a prudent man. He's going to conceal any dishonor. In his mind, it might be dishonor. In his mind, he might want to. He might want to thrash out and rashly thrush that sword. Nobody's going to conceal it because that's wisdom. Verse 18, it says, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Tongue of the wise isn't going to tear people down. It isn't going to destroy people. It isn't going to try to ruin people. Instead, it's going to bring healing. Because once you speak those words and once you act that way and you act like a little toddler, throwing yourself down on the floor, throwing yourself a little hissy fit, you can't take that back. You could ask for forgiveness, but the deed is done. You've acted a fool. So let's use wisdom. Let's be that prudent man, prudent woman. Conceal any dishonor that rises up within our heart over the act of anger. And don't rashly act out as thrusting that sword, because you can't take it back.